Alright guys, I'm gonna start off by sharing an empty screen right now, okay? So, once you install PyCharm, and if you open up your PyCharm, if you're on a Windows system, you can launch PyCharm using this search bar here, okay? Or if you're on a Mac, you can press Command spacebar, and you can start typing PyCharm, and that should be able to load it, okay? So once you launch PyCharm, this is what you're going to see. It's going to set up the environment and all that kind of stuff. Okay. Let me open a new file here. So yeah. So if you launch PyCharm, you're going to see something like empty screen or empty. If this is the first time, you're going to see nothing loaded there. You can say file, new file, and you should see an option to load Python file. Okay. So we're going to create a new file, which is a Python file. Select that option, and you can say whatever the name you want. Okay, so I'm gonna name it as demo_1. Okay, so this is a very beginning, so we want to set up the environment properly. Okay, so if the environment is appropriate, you can start practicing few things. Okay, so the first thing we want to do is go to file. There is a option called settings here. Right? Let me is the font visible? Okay, how about now? This should be better. I'm just sharing the PyCharm here, so you should be able to see better. Can you maximize the screen? Now I'm just sharing the PyCharm here. Is this better, or is this still unable to see?
Okay, fine, boss.
This fine, right? Yeah. Okay, cool. Alright guys, so first, because this is the first time we are running PyCharm, we want to set up a few things. So go to File and Settings, okay? If you're on a Mac, it might be the same thing, File and Settings and so on, okay? So click on that, and you will see this, on the left side, you will see a bunch of settings. Search for project interpreter, okay? You're gonna see this project interpreter option, okay? Click on that. There should be some interpreter that should be loaded here, okay? It can be 3.8, 3.10, 3.11, whatever it is. There has to be some environment that has to be selected here, okay? If you don't see that here, that means your Python is not installed appropriately, or maybe it's not installed in the right directory, okay? So make sure that you have this option showing up there, okay? Project interpreter. And this shows up some Python version. It doesn't matter what version it is. As long as it's 3 point something, that should be fine, okay? Does everybody see this option here? If you don't see it, let me know. I can maybe help you set up this environment. Okay, so I'm going to assume that everybody is able to see this option. Okay, so moving on. So yeah, don't worry about the packages that are here. These are some extra packages that I installed here. In your case, you may not see this many number of packages, but you want just a Python project interpreter to be showing up here. Okay, some interpreter, okay. It can be as long as Python 3 point something. We are good to go. Okay. All right. So I'm going to select 3.8, and I'm going to say okay. All right. So just to test whether your environment is working fine or not, just print this hello world, and yeah, just type this out. Print statement, print function call, and you can go to the option run here, and select run, and followed by 3 dots. Okay. So when you select that, it's going to show up which one you want to run. In my case, I named the file as demo_1. So I'm going to click that demo_1. And at the bottom, you should see this option. You should see the output. which is hello world. Okay. If you don't see that, that means something is wrong in your environment. Okay. Either your setup was incorrect, or Python was not installed in your correct directory, or something like that. Okay. So just put print hello world and go to run option. I'm going to give this function in the chat. Okay, just put that, whatever I put in the chat, in the new file that you created, and go to run option and click on this run with 3 dots. Okay, and that should show a pop-up saying which file you want to run. In my case, I named it as demo_1. You might have named it differently, but select that file that you named it, and that should be able to run the file. And at the bottom, you should see this thing, hello world. Okay, so let me know if you see it or if you don't see it. Does everybody see it? Come on, guys. You guys are a silent group here. So, is there anyone who doesn't see this output in your setup? Okay, I'm going to assume that everybody is able to see this. All right, moving on. All right, moving on. So this is a print statement, as we saw. Okay, so print means it's going to come to the output. Okay, it's going to console log or whatever you want to call console output, standard output. Yeah, so it's going to print it out, and you can see the output. Okay? So wherever your terminal is running, it's going to show that output. Okay. Now that is a basic print statement. Okay, so Python, you can declare. I mean, Python has a lot of functionality. So let's start off with some basic types. Okay, data types. Okay, what are the data types? So you can have something like age or some variable that's an integer. Okay, so here I named the variable as age, and I'm assigning a value of 10. Okay. In Python, if you want to have a comment means this is not part of the code, but this is something descriptive. Okay, you're describing your code, and you can put anything you want. Okay, so in this case, I'm saying it's an integer variable. Okay, Python itself, it's dynamic typing, and that means you don't have to define the type. Okay, so if it is like a Java, I have to say something like int age equal to 10, and I have to put a semicolon. Okay, if it is yeah, C++ or any other language, I have to specify the data type. I have to specify the name of the variable, and I have to assign the value, and I have to put a semicolon or something like that. Okay. In Python, you don't have to specify the type. Okay. So whatever you're assigning, it's going to take the value, or it's going to declare this variable age of that particular data type. Okay. So in this case, I'm saying age equal to 10. That means age is going to be an integer variable. Okay. Now, I can take the same name or same variable, and I can assign something like 12.33. Okay. Now, this variable has changed into a decimal. Okay. To be precise, we call it a float. Okay. Float means a small decimal value. Okay. So, the same variable, or let's take a different variable actually. Okay. All right, so let's take a different variable. Let's say money equal to 12.33. Okay. Now that is a float variable. That means it can hold the decimal values and all that. Okay. You can have a string variable. Okay. So you can have something like name equal to. Now that is a string variable, and you can see the strings have double quotes. You can also use single quotes. Okay. Python, you can use double or single quotes. It doesn't matter. Okay? Both of them are same here. Okay. So I can have name2. Here name and name2 are both the same. Okay, it doesn't matter if you put double quotes, single quotes, it's the same thing. Okay, all right. So that is a string variable. And then you can have a Boolean variable. Okay, Boolean means something like true, false. Okay, you can have true, you can have false value, or anything like that. Okay? So this is a Boolean value. So here I have a variable called is processed that is telling me is true. That means the processing is finished or not finished and all that. Okay. So you can see true is a Boolean value. That means either it can be true or false. Okay. Right. And then you can have some variables that are not of any type. Okay. So I can say something like db value equal to none. Okay. None means it's not initialized. It's not. It's similar to, let's say you have a null value in database. Okay. So it's kind of like null value. That means it's not pointing anywhere. In Java also you have a null pointer. So it's similar to the null pointer. Okay. So think of this as a null value. Okay. None means it doesn't have any value. The data type is not one of these, like a Boolean, string, float, integer, or any of those. Okay. So none means it's like a null value. Okay. Yeah, but these are the basic data types. Okay. There are other complex data types. I'm going to go into those also. Does anyone have any questions so far? Okay, all right, guys. So pay attention because later on I'm going to ask some questions. All right. Now these are the basic data types, right? So what are the operations that we can do on these data types? Okay. So I can do age equal to age plus 1. Okay. So that means I'm incrementing by 1. That means I'm doing an addition operation. Okay. You can also decrement. Okay? Age minus 1. Okay. That means you're decrementing the age. There's a shorthand notation for these two statements. The shorthand notation is this. Okay. Okay. So that means instead of typing this whole thing like age equal to age plus 1, I can do age plus equal to 1. Okay. That's a shorthand notation for the same stuff. Okay. So both of them are equivalent here. Same thing for decrement. I can use a shorthand notation, which is age minus equal to 1. Okay. So that's the shorthand notation. These both of them are equivalent. Okay. All right. In Java and other languages, you have something like plus plus and other syntaxes, but in Python you don't have the plus plus. You have the shorthand notation, which is something like this: age plus equal to 1. Okay. All right. Now you can also do multiplication operations and all that. Okay. So age equal to age times 2. Again, you can use the shorthand notation: age equal to age. Age star equal to 2. That means you are multiplying the age by 2, and you're assigning the value back to age. Okay. So this, is the same thing with division and other operations. Okay. You also have a modulus operator. Modulus means the remainder. Okay. So let's say if you have something like 5. In this case, the age is 10, right? Okay. So I'm gonna comment this. By the way, if you want to comment in PyCharm, you just highlight whatever you want and you press Control /. Okay, Control / is going to comment it. If you're on a Mac, I think it's Command /. But yeah, if you highlight and if you press / Control / that should be able to comment it. Okay? All right. So the modulus operator will give you the remainder. Okay, so if I do 10 mod 2, that means what is the remainder of 10 with 2? It's going to give me 0. Okay, so that is the modulus operator. Let's say if age equal to 11, and if I do age mod 2, that should give me 1, because 11 divided by 2 with the remainder is going to be 1. Okay. Okay. If you guys want, we can try it out. Okay. So I'm going to say print age mod 2. Okay. Remember, the first time I have to go and do run dot dot. But once I run it, I can use this option here, which is like a play button. Okay, so I can click on this play button, and that should be able to run the program. Okay, so it shows up as 1 here. Give me 1 second. Okay, all right. So you can use a modulus operator, which will give you the remainder of that particular variable divided by another variable. Okay, and you can put it inside the print statement. That will show you the output. Okay. All right. Any questions so far? Okay. All right. Let's move on. So that is the basic arithmetic operations. Okay. So I'm going to comment this out. The same operations that I have defined here, plus, minus, multiplication, division, modulus, you can do with float variables also. Okay. Float means decimal values. You can do the same things with float also. That's not a problem. Okay. Now let's take the string values here. Okay. Now with strings, let's say I want to, let's say this is my variable. So now I want to add something to the end of the string. Okay, like append some value and all that. Okay. So I can do name is equal to LLC. Okay. So that means it's going to add LLC to the end of that string. Okay. And you can see that I'm using the shorthand notation. Okay. Which is the same as name plus LLC. Okay? So if I do print name, give me 1 second, guys. I'm going to close the window. Looks like there was some fireworks going on. Okay. Okay. So we can use the plus operation. Plus is a concatenation. Okay. So I'm concatenating or appending this value LLC to the end of that string. Okay. So now if I print it and if I run this program, you're going to see LLC to the end of that string. Okay. So it wasn't there before. Now we are adding that and so on. Okay. All right. Any questions so far? Now, if you try to if you try to do minus operations or any of those, that's going to error out, okay? Because it doesn't make sense for you to subtract something from, okay? That's going to give you an error, okay? So the plus operation is concatenation or adding something to the end of the string, okay? Now, interestingly, Python supports a star operation. Star means multiplication, okay? So I can do name. Okay? That means it's going to repeat the same string 2 times. Okay. Now if I do name, so you're going to see Miracle Solutions LLC 2 times. Okay. So star operation is supported in Python, and you're going to see that Miracle Solutions LLC repeated again 2 times. Okay. So Python does support the star operation. That means repeat the same string 2 times. Okay. So if you want, sometimes it's like I want a star at the bottom of my screen, maybe like a new line kind of stuff. Okay, so I just want to print like hash. Okay. So if I run this, you're gonna see this like this operation, which is like hash printed 100 times. Okay, so you can do a star operation on a string, and that is going to repeat the same string those many number of times. Okay. Any questions so far? Okay. All right. Let's okay. So let's discuss other operations here. So that is the basic string manipulation. Okay. Now let me also talk about these two, because the string operations, there are many other use cases. I'm going to come back and discuss a little bit more about the strings later. These conditions, these Boolean values, as the name says, it's a Boolean value. It's a true false. Okay, and none. If you want a variable that is not initialized to anything, then you can initialize as a none value. None means it's not initialized and all that. Okay. All right. Now, what can you do with a Boolean value? Okay, so you can put it inside a if condition. Okay, so I can write something like if is processed. Okay, and I'm going to say print is processed. So this is the syntax. You're going to put if condition. That means you are checking for certain value. You are saying if this condition is true, then do this. Okay, or you can also do else. Still processing. Okay. So you can see Python has this syntax, which is a spacing syntax. Okay, in Java or C++, C#, other languages, you would do something like this: if condition, or in this case, is processed. Then you would open a curly parenthesis. Then you would do something like system dot out.println. This is for Java. Okay, if it's C++, you would do something like cout and all that. Okay, so and then if you want else, you would have to put a curly parenthesis there and all that. Okay. In Python, you would use the spacing. Space means that belongs to that particular block. Okay. As soon as the spacing finished, that means it's at the parent block. Okay. So here the else is at the if block. This else is for this if condition. Okay. So inside this, if I have something else, if age mod 2 equal to 0. Okay. And I have something like age is reducible by 0. Okay. Age is odd number. Okay. So I'm just coming up with a hypothetical example here. Okay. So here what I have is multiple if-else conditions. Okay. The first one is if some condition like is processed. Okay. And then inside that I have another if condition, which is checking for some other condition values and all that. Okay. So you can see the spacing here. So that is something I press a tab. But what PyCharm does is as soon as you press a tab, it's going to convert the tab to space. So according to my settings, it's 4 spaces. Okay? So it might be the same thing with you. When you press a tab, it's going to convert that to 4 spaces. But this is how Python knows. Okay, so this statement is part of this if condition. And this print statement is part of this else condition because it's looking at the spaces here. Okay, so if I have something else here, okay, so this print condition will be printed irrespective of whether age is an odd number or an even number. Okay, because this print is outside the if else. Okay, this print will be printed if it is processed. Okay. So spacing is very important in Python. This is what decides which block this particular statement belongs to. Okay. Yeah, you can have multiple if-else conditions and so on, or you can just have one if condition. Okay. So you can also have that just one if condition also. Okay. What if you want to have if-else conditions and so on? Okay. So you have to do. Other languages have something like this. Okay, so you can go have something like else, if, and all that. Okay, Python has elif. Elif means else if another condition. Okay, which is okay. So that means it's not else if. This is what other languages have, but in Python it's elif. Okay, that means else and check for another if condition. Then that's what you will be doing. Okay? And then you can chain multiple things if you want. Okay. And in Python, there is a special statement called pass. Pass means you haven't executed or you don't have an implementation for this block, and you're telling Python to ignore it. Okay. Let's do this print. Okay. Outside if conditions. Okay. Now, if I don't have the pass, that's gone. Okay. First, let me run this. Okay. So it's working fine. So it's printing is processed, and because our is processed is true. So it's going to enter into this particular block because that condition is true. It's going to go there. And then it's checking whether the age is divisible by 0 or not. In this case, it is modulus. Is the remainder 0? Yes. So it's going to print age is divisible by 0. And you can see this is going to be printed because this is inside the is processed. Okay. And this age is odd number is not going to be printed because this else condition is not evaluated because age is a even number. Okay. If this condition is false, it would go to the else part. Okay. All right. So this condition is true. So it's not going to go to this part. It's not going to go here, but it's going to execute this thing, which is the outside if condition. Okay. So that is how it's happening. Now, this pass statement, you might be thinking, what is the use of that pass statement? So if I remove that, and if I try to run this, it's going to say, hey, your indentation error, and that means you're supposed to write something here, but you didn't write anything. So it's going to complain. Okay. So if you have a block of code that you think you're going to come back and add some code later and all that, you can put a pass statement. Okay. If it was Java, I can have something like an empty block. That is fine. Okay. But Python won't accept empty block, so you need to put a pass. Okay. And anytime you use the if else conditions, you have to put a colon here. Colon means that is where the condition check has finished, and it's going to execute these things. Okay. So the syntax is if condition, if whatever the condition, followed by colon, followed by whatever the statements you want. Okay. And if you don't have anything that you want to skip that block, you can put a pass statement. All right. Any questions so far? Okay, I'm going to give you this code in the Zoom chat so you guys can play around with it. Okay, got it. Any questions so far? Yeah, if you guys have any questions, you can unmute and you can feel free to ask the questions. All right, guys. Now, okay, so we looked at if-else conditions, right? Now this is processed is a Boolean value. We put it there, right? Now, what if I do something like this? If db underscore value, and I say print, will this be executed? Okay. Can anybody take a guess whether this will be printed or not printed? Here the db value is none, and I put it inside this if condition. Okay. Will this throw an error? Number one, first option. Second option, this will print. Third option, this won't print. Let's see.
Throw an error.
Okay, Praveen said print. Kishan said error. Any other guesses?
Error, it will throw error.
Venu, error, okay. Well, let me tell you, all of you are wrong. It won't throw an error, it won't print. Because this is none. None means kind of like false, okay? There's no value. So Python will say, hey, this is like a null value. Null kind of like a zero value, okay? Zero means false. That means it's going to be if false, that means this won't be executed, okay? So if I run that, there's no output. You won't see this, will this be executed statement, okay? Now, What if I have age? Age has 10, right? So what if I put age here? I didn't put age greater than 10. Let me say this. I just put age. What will this do? This will throw an error. Print, not print. Yeah, you guys can take a guess. That's okay.
I think it will print the output.
Okay, Praveen says not print. Who said print?
AJ.
Okay, all right. Ajay said print. Yeah, that's correct. It will print because in Python, this is what you need to remember. Okay? Anything 0 or null or blank string or we haven't talked about list, but just remember this empty list is considered false. The rest everything is true. So if you have a value like a 10 or whatever, that's going to be considered true. Okay. If you have a string that is not empty, that is going to be true. Okay. If you have anything like 0, none, or blank string or empty list is considered false. Okay. Rest everything is considered true. Okay. So if I do this, this will be executed because age is 10. 10 is not 0, so it's going to print that. Okay. So you're going to see will this be executed at the bottom. Okay. Now, if I say this, age equal to 0, and if I try to execute this, this will not be, you won't see this output, okay? Okay, so you won't see that. So this is something you want to remember. So most of the code out there will be like this. They will never say age equal to 0 or age not equal to 0, then will they won't have a block there. Most of the code out in production in industry, they'll just do this. If age, then execute. And then you'll be thinking, what is he doing there, right? That means he's saying if age is not 0, then do this. Or if age is not blank, none, not initialized, empty, and so on, then yeah. So it's kind of like these are the conditions that will be considered false, and rest everything is true, okay? All right. Yeah. Now, let's let's do this, right? So if db value okay. Now, if I want to check whether it's a none value or not, you would have to do this. Okay. Say for strings here, but for a none value or so on, you can do is none. Okay. Or you can just leave it there, something like this. That means this is not none, then this will be executed. Okay. Let's look into this. Okay. If db value. Let me know if I'm confusing you guys, because this is a little confusing topic right here. But once you understand, it will be very clear. Okay. All right. So if you have, okay, so here I'm going to say db underscore value equal to none. Okay. So when I try to execute this, the first, this one will be evaluated as false. Okay. If db value equal to none, that means if it is none, as you can see, is considered false. Okay. So this condition won't be true. So it will go here and it will print this db value is not initialized. Okay. But let's say I want to only do this. I don't want to do this. Okay. So I don't want to print it. Okay. Maybe I want to tell the user that, hey, I just want to tell you that this is not initialized, but I don't want to do if it's initialized. Okay. Don't want to do anything. So in that case, I can put a pass statement, but it doesn't make sense to put a pass which I'm never going to come back and replace that. Okay. That means I don't have to put if else and all that. Okay. So I can just do this if not db value. Print db value is not initialized. Okay, that means here not is an operation that is supported in Python, which is going to flip it. A true is considered a false is considered true. Okay, so here not means db value is false because it's a non-value, and when you say not false, it's going to be true. Okay, that means this will be printed. Okay, so if I run this, you're going to see that output here, which is db value is not initialized. Okay. All right, any questions so far? All right, just to recap, we looked at integer variables, float variables, string variables, some of the operations on integers, some of the operations on numbers, string operations like plus, repetitions, if conditions, if else conditions, chained if else conditions. Okay. Not condition, non-value, what is considered true, what is considered false. Okay, so these are like basics, very basics. Okay, I'm gonna copy this and I'm gonna paste it in the chat so you guys can try it out. Okay, so this message is too long. Please try sending shorter messages. Okay, so I'm just gonna send you the new code that I pasted here. Okay. Now there are some other data types. Okay, before we go to other data types, let's look at string data types. Okay, let me just comment this out. All right, so let's say I have this string which is like this string which is Miracle Solutions LLC. Now using that string, let's say I want to get a string is nothing but a list of characters. Okay, so for some of you who worked in other languages like maybe Java or other languages, you know what is a list. List means a bunch of elements. Okay, so a string is nothing but a bunch of characters, and it's a list of characters. Okay, so since it's a list of characters, you can do any kind of list operations. Okay, so if I want the first character, I can use a 0. Okay, 0 means get me the first character, which is going to be capital M here. Okay, so if I do print, okay, you're going to see capital M at the bottom here. I'm not sure if you can see here. Let's see if I can increase the font here. Okay, I don't see an option to increase the font, but let me know if you can't see. So here, when I say square bracket and a 0 notation, okay, so when I use the 0 notation, that means give me the first character. Okay, so indexes always start with 0. Okay. If you want to print the second character, you have to use 1. 1 means it's a second index. Okay, because it's starting from 0. M is going to be considered 0. I is going to be considered 1 index. R is 2 index, and so on. Okay, so it's all 0 index. So that would give me the first character. Now, what if I want to get the fifth character? So I have to do 4. 4 means the fifth character. Okay. Now, what if I want the last character? How would I get the last character? So Python, there are 2 ways. Okay, I can do length of name minus 1. That means I'm saying give me the string length, and let's say I have a small string which is like name equal to ABCD. Okay, and here the length is going to be 4. Okay, 4 minus 1 is going to be 3. So I'm pretty much saying give me the third index, which is going to be 4th character, which is going to be the last character. Okay, so that's what I'm doing here. But calling the length function itself is very I would say internally Python has to compute the length of the string, and then it has to subtract 1, and then it has to get that particular character. Okay? Python has a shorthand notation, which is -1. Okay, so if you say just -1, that will give you the last character. Okay, last element. So if I run this, I'm going to say D. D means the last character, A, B, C, D, and I am the first one is getting third index, which is the fourth character, which is the last character. Okay, the next one says -1. -1 means it starts from the end of the string. Okay, anything positive is starting from the beginning towards the end, and anything negative starting from the end towards the beginning. Okay, so what if I want the last but one character? Okay, so I want the C character here. Okay, so I say name -2. Okay, so last second character. Okay, that would be -2. Okay, so you can see that prints C. Okay, so this is how the index operations work in Python. Other languages do not support negative indices, but Python supports negative indices. Negative means start from the end. Okay, you start from the end, go towards the beginning. Okay, positive means start from the beginning, go towards the end. Okay, all right. Now there are other operations that can be supported. Okay, so I'm going to remove this. I'm going to put back this thing. Okay, all right. Now, if I want to get, let's say, first 4 characters, okay, or maybe let's say first 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 characters, okay. So there are 2 ways, okay. One is I can write a for loop. Yeah, we haven't discussed about for loops, but forget about that. So Python supports a range operation, okay. So I can say start from 0, go towards 7, okay, first 6 characters, okay. So this is how it works. You specify a start index and you specify end index. So it's going to start from the start and go towards the end, and it's going to extract those many number of characters. Okay. So in this case, it's going to start from 0, go towards 7, and get me those characters. Okay. So it got me the first word, which is miracle. Okay. Now you can see it didn't include the 7th index because end index is always excluded. Okay. Start index is always included. Okay. So when I say 7, that means it's going to go all the way to 7, but it's not going to execute for 7. Okay. Now let me do this. Print name 0 and 1. How many characters will this print? I said print 0 to 1. Will this print 2 characters, 1 character, 5 characters? What is your guess? 1. Okay.
1 character, I think.
Yeah, that's correct. It's going to print 1 character because end is always excluded. It's not going to. So if we start from 0 and 1, it's going to go all the way to 1, but end is excluded. Okay? So it's only going to print the 0th index. Okay, just capital M. Okay. Now, what if I want to go all the way to the end, starting from 5th character, okay, or 5th index? Okay, I can just leave it blank. That means I'm going to start from 5th index. I'm going to go all the way to the end. Okay? I don't have to specify the length of that string or anything. Okay, so that's going to print this thing. So it started from 5th index, and since I didn't say end, it's going to go all the way to the end. Okay. Now, what if I want starting from first towards the 5th character? Okay? So I can just do this. Okay? That means I don't have to specify the start. I'm going to go towards 5th character, but 5th character is not included. So it's going to print 0 to 4. Okay. And since I didn't specify the start, it's going to start from 0. Okay. Okay. So it started from 0. It went to 4th index. The 5th index is excluded. Okay. So it's going to print 5 characters here. Okay. Now, what if I want every alternate character? I want M followed by R followed by C and all that. Okay. So this what I mentioned here is only partial truth. Okay, there is something else that follows, which is the increment operation. Okay. So this is actual syntax. Every one of these fields is optional. Okay, you can start index is optional. You don't have to specify. If you don't specify, that will be 0. End index is optional. If you don't specify, end index will be the end of the string. Increment by default is 1. Okay, so if I do this, print name, start from 0, go towards the 6th character. I want every alternate character. 2. 2 means increment by 2. Okay, that means it's going to print MRC. Okay, so if I run this, so you can see it prints MRC. Okay, every alternate character until the 6th index. Okay, now what if I want every alternate character towards the end of the string? Okay, so I can exclude that. It's going to print every alternate character towards the end of the string. Okay, since 0 is by default, I can exclude that too. Okay, so that's going to start from the beginning towards the end, and it's going to give me every alternate character. Okay, colon 2. Okay, any questions on this? This is start index, end index, excluded, and the increment. By default, increment is 1. Okay, by default, end index is end of string. Start index by default is 0. Okay. So if you don't specify, it's going to start from 0. If I don't do this, it's going to be same as printing the whole string, because you're starting from the first character, you're going towards the end, and every character is an increment. Okay, so that's going to print the actual string itself. Okay, but if you want every alternate character, you can do 2. Okay, if you want every third alternate character, you can put 3, and that's going to print M followed by A and so on. Okay, so every third character and so on. Okay, all right, any questions? All right, I have a question for you guys. So what if I want to print the reverse of the string? Okay, I want to start from the end and I want to go towards the beginning. I want the reverse of the string. How do I do that? So here you have a start index, end index, right? How do I do the reverse?
Using negative, maybe.
Yeah, okay. Tell me, what should I put here? Name. -1, colon 0, or what? Okay, Praveen says -1, 0. And let's close this. So that, I don't think that will work. Let's see. Yeah, it didn't. Let me just comment this. There are too many print statements. Okay. Printed what? Okay. Didn't print anything. Yeah, it didn't print anything there. Okay. Because the start is greater than the end. It's not even gonna, sorry, start is less than the end. But you're saying start from -1. That means the end. Yeah, increment is by default 1. It didn't work out there. Okay. So that's not the right syntax. Okay. Bordeaux said colon -1. That is the right answer. Okay. Because you are specifying the index as -1. Okay. So what it's going to do is it's going to flip around. Since you said 0 to end and all that, yeah, so it's going to start from the end of the string and go towards the beginning. Okay, so this is the reverse of that string. Okay, so if you want to reverse a string in Python, this is what you should do: colon -1. There is a reverse function also, but sometimes you might see this. Okay. Now, if I want every alternate character starting from the end of the string, what shall I put? So what I want is the last character S, and then O, followed by T, every alternate character starting from the end. I think it's -2, okay? So instead of increment of 1, here I'm saying increment of -2. Yeah, okay? It starts with S, O, T, every alternate character. Okay, so I might be confusing you too much. So let's, yeah, so these are the range operations, which means you have a start index, end index, and increment or decrement, whatever you consider that, okay? So these are the string operations, okay? So if somebody asks you, write a program for palindrome, okay? I give you a string, tell me whether it's a palindrome or not, okay? Palindrome, some examples of palindrome. Okay, sorry, I'm not sharing the Chrome browser here. Okay, so mom is an example of a palindrome, okay? M-O-M, okay, mom. None, N-U-N. None is an example of a palindrome, okay? Palindrome means the reverse of the string is the same as that string, okay? And here is a big one, which is Madam in Eden, I am Adam, okay? So excluding the punctuation, this is a palindrome, okay? So let's go with simple stuff for now, okay? So somebody tells you, or maybe an interviewer asks you, can you write a program for palindrome, okay? How would you write it? So now you guys know how to get the reverse of the string. A palindrome is pretty much, it's the same going from the beginning to the end or end to the beginning. It's the same string, okay? So I can simply do this. If, let's call it a word, okay? Word equal to, if word equal to colon -1, okay? So here, this is giving me the reverse of the string. So I'm going to say print word is palindrome. Let's print plus it's not a palindrome. Okay, so if I run this, it's going to say mom is palindrome, okay, or whatever the word you choose, okay. Yeah, so this here we are reversing the string. Colon -1 is going to give me the reverse. If this word is the same as the reverse, that means it's a palindrome, okay. So you guys know how to reverse a string, how to do if conditions, else conditions, and all that. So you can write this program, which is like 2 lines, or in this case, it's 4 lines. But this is the power of Python that can help you write complex code in very few statements. Okay. Yeah. Okay. All right. Any questions so far?
Can you copy this last few lines?
Yeah. Sure. Sure. All right. So that is some of the string operations. Okay. Now let's talk about. Yeah, let's talk about some functions. Okay, so now I have this thing called, I have this piece of code that I want to generalize. Okay, that means I have some logic that can tell me whether a given word is a palindrome or not. Okay, so now I have 10 words mom, none, and a bunch of other words that I want to test whether they're palindrome or not. I cannot just repeat the same code again and again. So I cannot put here and word equal to anywhere, none, and repeat that same code here, right? I mean, what if tomorrow I change some logic here? I want to say word is a palindrome, okay? Something like this, okay? I'm changing the text here. I have to change everywhere, right? So what we do is we write a function and we call that function, okay? So Python and every language provides something called a function, okay? So I can write a function is palindrome, which takes a word or a string and it returns whether the string is the same as the reverse. Okay, so here I defined a function called def. Def means definition. This is the name of the function is palindrome. Okay, now let's actually do this. Let's make it simple. Okay. Def is equal to okay. So what I did here is I defined a function. And the way you define the function is that you put the keyword def, you write the name of the function, what are the parameters you want to accept, whether it's a string parameter, whatever it is, okay? Since Python is dynamic typing, you don't have to specify whether it's an integer, string, or what it is, okay? You just put the variable name. And in this case, it's accepting only one parameter, not like 2 parameters or 0 parameters or anything. It's taking one parameter. And what it's doing is it's comparing that string with the reverse of the string. Okay, if it matches, then it's printing. Else, not. It's not a palindrome. It's going to print something else. Okay, so this is the same logic that we saw, which was outside the function. Now we put that inside the function. Okay, but inside the function, I have a string that is a parameter, and then I'm working on that parameter. Okay. Now we can simplify this and we can call this multiple times. Let me look for some other examples. Okay, radar. Okay, all right. So these are some few examples. There are a ton of other words and all that. Okay, so now what I'm doing is I define the code once. Oh, sorry, this should be S. I'm calling it multiple times. Okay, so that's one of the advantage of functions. Okay, so if I run this, it's going to say mom word is a palindrome, none word is a palindrome, and all that. Okay, so if it's not a palindrome, I'm gonna miracle. Okay, so it's going to say miracle is not a palindrome and all that. Okay, so if it is a palindrome, it's going to print it. If it's not a palindrome, it's going to print not a palindrome. But I'm defining the code only once and I'm calling it multiple times. Does somebody else say? Is anybody asking anything, or I heard some sound? That's fine. All right, guys, if you have any question, you can just unmute yourself and you can ask the question. Okay, so this is how you define a function. Okay, so you put the keyword def, the name of the function, and the parameters. And in Python, everything is space or indentation and everything. Okay, so you're gonna indent it and you're gonna type it out and all that. Okay, so if I do this, Control X, and I put it there. Now these statements are not part of the function. Okay, because the indentation, you can see it's not indented inside the function. It's at the function level itself. That means this is outside the function. Okay. Any other questions? Okay, so we are close to 1 hour. So let's add few more data structures here. So this is a string data type. Now there is a list data type. Okay, so you can have something like cities, or you put a square bracket. Okay, so you say something like New York. Okay, say Orlando, Dallas, and give me some names. San Francisco. Okay, all right. And, that's fine. So you have a list of values. Okay, so this list is a list of cities. Okay, now if you remember, the string is also a list of characters, and this is actually a list of strings. Okay, or you can have something like this. Okay, employee IDs equal to 256, 456, 786, 781, and 512, and so on. Okay, so these are the list of employee identifiers, which are list of integers. Okay, the first one is cities, which is a list of strings. The second one is integers, and so on. Okay, so all these operations that we discussed before, which is like square bracket -1, -2, range operations starting from start index to end index, and all those operations will work for these guys also. Okay, so if I want to get the first city, I can just do print cities of 0, and that should give me the first city. Okay, what if I want to get the last city? So I can do -1, and that will give me the last city. Okay, what if I want to get starting from the first until second or third? Okay, so let's say cities, and I can do 0, 2, and that's going to give me the first 2 cities. Okay, what if I want to get alternate cities? Okay, print cities : 2. Okay, that's going to give me every alternate cities and all those. So these are the same operations that are supported for strings. It's going to be supported for these data types. Okay, a string is nothing but a list of characters. Okay, and this is an actual list of strings itself. So you can use the same operations that we defined before for these guys also. Okay, if I want to reverse the list of cities, I can just do print cities : -1. Okay, so that's going to reverse the entire list of cities. Okay, so let's run this and show it to you. Okay, so the first one, you can see New York. Okay, shows up here. The next one, which is the last one, which is San Francisco. Okay, and then you have 0 and 1. Yeah, sorry, every alternate. Yeah, this is every alternate, which is New York, Dallas. Okay, you got New York, Dallas here. And this is the reverse of the list, which is San Francisco, followed by Dallas, followed by Orlando, and New York. Okay, so that's what you see here. Okay. The same thing that we did with strings. If you want to add something to the end of the string, you would do a plus operation, right? So you can do the same thing here also. Okay. Cities plus, let's say I want to add a new city. Okay, which is maybe you can see that a new item added to the end of the list. Okay. Now in Python, Python is a data dynamic typing. Okay, it doesn't matter whether it's an integer, number, or anything. Okay, so you can have a list of integers, which is fine. Okay, so you can print employee IDs. Okay, so that's going to print those identifiers. But I can also add string data types in there, because for Python it doesn't matter whether it's an integer, string, or whatever it is. Okay, so I'm going to add maybe Sam, Rich, and Paul. Okay, so you can have some integers followed by some string values, or you can have integer values in there. It doesn't matter. Okay, so Python is type independent language, So it says it's happy with this kind of list also. Okay, so if I print it, you're gonna see Sam and Bob is in between the integer list. Okay, so that's not a problem. You can have a list of list also. Okay, so you can have that. Let's say there's another department and that has a few more employees. So that is also okay. Okay, so if you run that, a list of lists, that is not a problem. You can add some string values inside integer list values. Okay, I'm just adding random values here. Okay. So you can make as complex as you want. Okay, so you can have a list followed by a few integer strings followed by another list of lists and all that. Okay, now if I want to access this particular value, which is Sam, I would have to use 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, index 4 to get the fifth element. Okay, so that should print Sam here, right? Now, what if I want to access this 8 to 9? What should I do there? Does anybody want to take a guess? So I want to print this first value, which is 8 to 9, inside this inner list.
7, 0.
11, 0.
7, 7, 0.
Oh, 7, 0. Yeah, that's right. Sorry, you say 7, 0 like this?
No, in different brackets.
Oh,
7.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, that's correct. Yeah. So what we did here is we went to this particular index, which is 7th index, right? 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Yep, 7. And then within that list, we want the first one, which is 0 index. Okay. So you can have this whole thing. The first employee IDs of 7 is going to give me this whole thing. Okay. And out of that, and I'm saying give me the 0, which is 829. Okay. Yeah, that's correct. Yep. So that should give me 8 to 9. Okay. And now if I want this Mary here, that should be what, 7. In the 7, I want third index. Okay. And within the third index, I want the first element. So that is what I would be doing there. Okay. And that will give me Mary. Okay. Yeah, but you get the idea. Okay. So you would use a square bracket notation to go to that particular element. And if it happens to be another list and you want to access something inside, then you would put another square bracket and so on. And then you would access that corresponding element. Okay. All right. Any other questions? Okay. Now these are like list of values. Okay. Now lists are okay, but that is not enough for the real world scenario. You need something like dictionaries. Okay. Now, what is a dictionary? A dictionary is something like, let's say I have an employee info. Okay. Now, this guy 256 happens to be some person. Okay. And that person name is Bob. Okay. Now, this guy 456 is another person. Let's say that person name is Richard. Okay. And 781 is another person named Samuel, or whatever you want to call it. Okay. All right, so this is something like a mapping. Okay. So you have an employee ID and the employee name here. Okay. So this is a key and this is a value. Okay. So let's make it more prettier. Okay. So I should do this. All right. So what I did here is I declared a dictionary. This is called a dictionary. Dictionary is nothing but a key value mapping. Okay. In some languages, it's called a map. In Java, it's called a map, tree map, hash map, and all that. In this case, it's a hash map. If you're interested in internal details, it's a hash map, but it's a key value mapping you cannot have duplicate keys here. The same employee ID cannot be repeating for another employee. Okay, so that key cannot be a duplicate value, and this is a corresponding value for that key. Give me 1 second, guys. Let me respond to this message. So it's a key value mapping. This employee ID and this employee name. And if I want to access the corresponding information for this employee 456, I can do this. Employee info 456, and that should give me the name of that corresponding employee. Okay, so you can see it prints Richard. Okay, because 456 corresponds to Richard, and the syntax wise, yeah. So if you want to declare a dictionary, you would use a curly parenthesis instead of a square bracket. Square bracket is just a list of values, but if it's a dictionary, you would put a curly parenthesis there, and then you have a key value mappings, you have a key corresponding values, and so on. Okay, but if you want to access the corresponding value, you would put a square bracket notation, and you would put a key inside, and that should give you that. Okay, now yeah, so what happens if you put something non-existing? Okay, employee info, and let's say I put 1, 2, 3. Okay. So I tried to get an employee info for an employee ID that doesn't exist. Now what happens there in that case? Any guesses? Yeah, so that should throw an error because it tries to look up in there and it doesn't find. It's called a key error. Okay, so you can see it shows something like key error 1, 2, 3. Okay, that means it's tried to look up by the key. It could not find it, so that gives me back a key error. Okay. Now, what if I have not just the name, but more properties? Okay, so I have his name. Okay, so name is Bob. Age is let's say 40. Okay, salary is $10,000. Let's say. Okay, location. Let's say they have multiple branches, and this guy is located in the US. Okay, yeah, that's enough for now. Okay. And let's say the same thing for Richard. There is a corresponding separate information for Richard. Okay. So it is 30. Salary is 12,000. It's located in UK. Okay. So let's say this is the data that we have. Okay. So you just don't have a single value, but what you have is a key value mappings. This is the key for this employee ID. This is the information. Okay, so this is a dictionary of dictionaries. Okay, and this is absolutely fine in Python. Okay, and then you can have the corresponding information. Okay, so now let's say I want the name of this guy 457, 456. So I would say, give me employee information for that 456, and from there, give me the name. Okay, so I'm going to say, put the square bracket name, and that should print the name Richard. Okay, you can see this here. And if I want a salary, I can print a salary here. Okay, so that should give me the employee salary for 456 employee ID. Okay, and that gives me $12,000. Okay, if I want to print the whole thing, I can just leave it 456, and that will print the whole dictionary. Okay, so you can see it prints Richard, age 30, salary, location, and everything. Okay, Now, this is a dictionary of dictionaries. Doesn't mean you can have other data types here. So you can have, let's say, location. This guy is working in multiple locations. Okay. It's working in UK, US. He's also working in India and other locations. Okay. So you can have a dictionary of list values also. Okay. So this is a key, and corresponding to that key, there's a list of values. Okay. And if I print this, you can see that works fine. That's not an error. Okay. So that location, he's working in multiple locations, and this is what it is. Okay. And let's say you can have, if you want to complex data structures, you can, inside the list, you can have another dictionary and other things also. Okay. But Python doesn't restrict you. You can come up with your own use case. Okay. But this is a dictionary. A dictionary is nothing but a key value mapping. Okay. Any questions so far? Okay. So let's say if I want to add some values, once I declare this list, I want to add some more values. Okay. So maybe a new employee ID employee joined, so we want to add some value. So you can do employee dot append. Append is going to add. Okay. You can also do the plus operation, but append is more descriptive, and you can add. So you can do append operation here. So that will add a new value. But let's say there are 10 employees who joined your company at the same time. Okay? So instead of calling append every time, you can do extend. In extend, I can provide multiple values. Okay? So what this is going to first, let me print this here. Okay. So let me comment this out. Yeah. So here we have a list of values. Let's try to simplify this. Okay. List of employee IDs, and we are adding one value, and then we are printing it out. But then I'm adding 3 values, and then I'm printing it out. So you can see first Bob is there. After Bob, there should be 890. Okay, so you got 890 after Bob. Okay, so after 890, I added 3 more values. So you can see 3 more values are added. Okay. Now, if you try to do append with this square bracket notation, that will add the entire list as a single element. Okay. Okay. So if I do print. Okay. So here you can see it added the entire list as a single element here. That is not what you want. You want to expand that list and add it to the original list. Okay. So extend is going to add every one of those to the original list. Append is going to add that element that you pass directly to the list. Okay. Now let's say I want to delete this guy, 456. He left the company, he's no longer with our company. Okay. So Python provides a del operation, which is a delete operation. Okay. So I can do delete 1. That means this particular one element, the first index is gone. Okay, it's deleted. Okay, so here you can see after 256, it directly went to 781. Okay, so you can see after 256, it prints 781. Okay, so the delete, you call it a del. A del means delete that particular index and the element, and that will be deleted from the list. Okay, if you want to add at a certain index, let's say I want to add a new employee ID after 781. Okay, so I can do insert, and this time insert I can specify the index. Okay, so here is 2 and the corresponding value. Okay, so let's say 900. So these are all, I'm just coming up with some hypothetical examples, but you get the idea. Okay, if you want to add one element, you do append. If you want to add multiple elements, you do extend. Okay, if you want to delete something, you'd say delete. But you want to add, but not at the end, but you want to add somewhere in between, you're going to use insert. Okay. All right. Any questions so far? Okay. All right. So these are dictionaries. These are list values. Okay. Now let's look at some operations on the dictionaries. Okay. So list, pretty much you are adding, deleting, extending, and so on. Okay. So that's pretty standard notation. Okay. Now in a dictionary, you can also add new keys. You can also delete the keys and all that. Okay. So let's say I want to delete this guy, 456. Okay. Delete employee info. The same what we did for the list. I'm going to use it for this guy, which is the dictionary. Okay. And let's say if I print it, we should not see this record, which is Richard. Okay. So here at the bottom it says 256 followed by 781, but there is no 456. Okay. So first I see 256 and then I see 781. Okay. I don't see 456 there. Okay. It's deleted. Now let's say I want to add a new key. Okay. So you can do employee info. Let's say new key is going to be something like 824 equal to. Let me copy this. So here I added a new key, which is 324. Okay, so this employee wasn't there before. Now adding, so adding for a list, you would do append or other things. But in a dictionary, you just do assignment operation. You just do equal to. Equals means it's going to create this new key, and this is going to be the corresponding value. Okay, so now if I print this dictionary, okay, you're going to see the new key here. Okay, so you have 256 followed by 781 followed by 324. Okay, so you got 324 at the end. Okay, yeah, okay. So these are like pretty standard operations. Okay, now let's say this guy is already existing, 781. Okay, I want to update his information. Okay, let's say his salary got changed. Okay, from 15,000 to 20,000. Okay, so I can do employee info 781. And then I can put another square bracket and I can say salary equal to 20,000. Okay, so that means I'm changing 781 salary to this new value, which is 20,000. Okay, so instead of 15, now it's going to be 20,000. Okay, or if you want to just increment 5,000 here, you can also do this. That's 5,000. Okay, so it's taking the previous value, it's adding 5,000 and assigning it back to the same thing. Okay, or you can also do a shorthand notation instead of typing it, retyping again. So that is the equivalent of that. Okay, so you're taking the salary, you're incrementing 5,000 and assigning it back to the same. Okay. Okay, so if I print it, we should see Sam's salary should be what, 20,000. Okay, Sam has a salary of 20,000. You can see here. Okay. All right, so that's how you would update an existing key value pair. Okay. Now I have this guy 781, but let's say I assign a new thing. Okay, so I take this And this time instead of Sam, I'm saying Mark. And let's say it's 5,000. Okay. So will this error out or will this work? Because I already have 781 and I'm trying to assign a new value to this thing. So take a guess and tell me whether is this okay, whether this will update, whether this will fail, or there'll be two keys or one key. So we already have 781 mapped to SAM with age 50 and all that. Now we did 781 for age 23 mark and all that. Okay, so will this error out? Will this update that record? What happens to the old value? What happens to the new value? Yeah, that's correct, Marvel. Yeah, it will update the previous value. So what are the value was there before? It's going to update that with the new value. Okay. For Python, it doesn't know whether you are trying to update. Similar to this guy. Okay, you are updating the salary. So Python will think that hey, you're trying to update with a new record. So it's going to replace that old 781 this information with this new information. Okay. So if I run this for 781, now you're going to see Mark with 5,000. Okay. Where is that guy? Okay, right here, sorry. Okay, 781, Mark 5,000. Okay. All right, any questions so far? Okay, so now we looked at the basic operations, which is basic data types, integer strings. We looked at list values. We looked at dictionaries, some of the operations of the dictionaries and all that. Okay. Now let's look at for loops. There is for loop, while loop, and different loops. So let's look at that very quickly. So I have this employee IDs. Okay. Now every employee ID, let's say I want to add 1,000. Okay. Let's say I want to add 1,000 to every one of those values. So if I want to add 1,000 to every one of those values, I can say for employee ID in employee IDs. Okay. Now I want you guys to tell me whether this will print what this will print. Will this print 1256, 1456, 1781, 1512, or this will print the old values?
That value will be added to each.
Each, okay. 1,000 will be added to each, okay?
Yeah. Okay. And then it will print.
Okay. Any other guesses? So what we did here is we are taking each employee ID in employee IDs. This is the syntax. For loop means we are looping through that particular list and then we are taking some operation on that. Okay. So if let me comment this whole thing.
Can you copy that in the chat?
Oh, this one? Sure. Yeah, let me uncomment and send it in the chat. This is too long. Okay. Let me send this back first. Okay. Okay. All right. Yeah. So what were we discussing? Yeah, this for loop here. Okay. So yeah. So if I print so here what's happening is I'm taking the list element, I'm adding 1000, but I'm not putting back in the list. So I don't think this will add 1000. It should print the previous values. Let's just give it a try. Yeah, that's exactly what I thought. It's not going to update the list. It's going to give me the same list, same values, because here I took each element, I'm adding 1000, but I'm not putting back in the list. Okay. Yeah, fine. Yeah, so there is some other notation that we have to do. So there is a function called enumerate. Okay, enumerate, what it does is it will give me the index and the corresponding item. Okay, so that means for the first one it will give me 0 and 256. For the second one it will give me 1 and 456. Okay, so the index is going to be 0 for the first one, and the value is going to be 256. Okay. Employee ID is going to be 256. Okay. For the next one, index is going to be 1, and employee ID is going to be 456 and all that. Okay. So now if I want to put it back in the list, I have to do let's replace equal to. Yeah. So this is what we are doing. We are adding 1000 to the existing element and then putting back in the list. Okay. Now if I print it, it's going to give me 1000 added to every one of those elements. Okay. Yeah. So in the before case, here we are not even using this employee ID, so I can just put underscore. Underscore means I'm not going to use that value. Okay. But yeah, so here what we are doing, we are getting an index and we are using the list index notation, and then we are incrementing and putting back in the list. Okay, or pretty much we are updating the list. Okay. Instead of this, we can also do for index in range. Okay. What the range function is going to do is it's going to start from 0 all the way to the end. Okay. So let's say let me first do this for index in range 10 print index. Okay. So what this is going to print is it's going to print 0 to 9. Okay, so 10 is not included. The last element is always excluded. Okay, so you can see that it printed 0, 1, 2, 3 all the way to 9. There is no 10 here, 10 there. Okay, and this is the same notation that is used for range operations like colon notation. Okay, so it's going to start from 0 to 10 with an increment of 1. Okay, so if you want to start from 5, you want to go to 10, you can do 5, 10. Okay, that means it's going to start from 5 and go towards 10, but 10 is not included. Okay, so 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Okay, let's say if I want every alternate number, I can do 2, and that's going to give me every alternate number like 5, 7, 9, and so on. Okay, so it's going to print 5, 7, 9. Okay. So that's a range function which follows the same notation that we saw before: start, end, increment, and those kind of stuff. Okay. Now, when I do this, which is a range of length of employee IDs. Okay, here the length is going to give me the length of this list, which is like 5 elements. So this is going to be converted to range of 5. Okay. And then it says employee IDs of index. That means starting with 0, it's going to take the 0, add 1000, put it back in the list. Okay. Yeah, but that is how you will loop over the elements. That means I want to go over every element. I want to do something. You can do the range operation. Okay. Let's say I want to print whether it's a palindrome or not, these cities. Okay, so I can use that function that we defined before. So I can say for city, in cities, is palindrome. Okay. So this is what it's going to do is it's going to call this function isPalindrome for each city in there. Okay, whether it's a palindrome or not, it's going to verify that and print it out. Okay. Okay, so you can see that it says New York is not a palindrome. None of the cities are palindrome. Okay, so it's going to print that. Okay, but if you have a city that's a palindrome, that's going to print that city is a palindrome. Okay. All right. Yeah, but this is a for loop. For means you are looping over a bunch of values here, and then you are taking some action. And in this case, I'm actually calling the function. And in the other case, I'm actually incrementing the employee identifiers and all that. Okay. Yeah. But for loop is something that is used to loop over elements. Okay. But let's say I don't have a loop. I just want to start from some time. Let's say my current clock equal to, let's say what's the time now? 10:48. Okay. 10:48. Okay. While clock is less than 12 o'clock. Okay. Print still Saturday. Okay. So some logic here where I am actually getting the current system clock. Okay, or let's do this. This is not a real function. I just put it there just to tell you the logic. Okay, so what we're doing here is I'm saying get me the current system clock, which is a time 10:48, and if the time is still less than 12 o'clock, I'm going to say it's still Saturday, and so on. Okay, so it's going to keep printing Saturday until the Saturday is going to finish. Okay, or maybe you want something like this. If it's still Saturday, maybe you want to send a message. Maybe you have a clock, alarm clock on a Sunday. You may have to fire up an alarm and all that. Okay. Whatever the logic, you can use a while loop. While loop means it's going to execute until that condition is false. Okay, but if the condition is true, it's going to execute. Okay, so that's a while loop. And a for loop is good if you know what are the elements that you want to loop. You can use a for loop. Okay, a while loop is good if you just want to have a condition and you want to execute until that condition is false. A while loop would be a good choice. Okay. Any questions, guys? All right, we are getting close to the time. 10 more minutes, and I think we are covered a lot of topics here. But just to make it interesting, let's implement this thing, which is get system clock. Okay, Python makes it much easier to do complex code. Okay, so I'm going to import a date time. Okay, so this import that you see here means I'm getting a library or a module called a datetime module. Okay, and using that module, I can get something like current system time. Okay, dot now. Okay, now means it's a current system time. Okay, now I'm going to say clock dot minutes. Clock dot minute. Stop over. Less than or equal to 23. Okay, so if the clock hour is less than 23, then we are saying, hey, this is still Saturday. Okay, so that's it. So the same logic that I had before, I'm using a date time library, and you can see import statement. Import means there is another file module called a date time, and I'm getting that file or functionality into my current file. Okay, and I'm calling from that module, and I'm saying give me the current system time, and if the clock hour is less than 23, then I'm still Saturday. Okay, I'm just going to loop there until it's end of the day. Okay, So if I run this gonna end up printing Saturday so many times. Okay, so you can see it's still printing still Saturday, and all that. Okay, I'm gonna cancel this. To cancel it, you can press this red button here on the top. Okay, so that should stop it. Okay. Hello guys, so that is what we're gonna cover in this session. Any questions?
Vasu, can you put the entire thing on YouTube when you upload?
Yeah, sure, definitely. I'm gonna upload and I'm gonna give it to you guys. Send the link and all that.
Sure. Also, the one that you copied in the chat, it
Yeah.
just copied the half thing, I think.
Okay, fine. I'll create a file. I'll send it along with the YouTube video. Okay, so send this file same in the WhatsApp chat also. Okay,
All right.
I can send it to you guys. Yeah, so practice these things, and I'm gonna give you a small assignment. So I don't think this should take more than half an hour or 1 hour for you guys. But if not, then practice it. The more you practice, the better it is. Okay? So I want you to declare a list of subjects. Okay? Subjects can be like mathematics, science, okay? And a bunch of other things. Okay? Other subjects. What are the subjects? Philosophy, whatever you want. Okay, so declare a list of subjects. Second, find all subjects that have a character E in it. Okay, it can be uppercase E, lowercase e, or anything. Okay? It can be upper or lower. Now, let me just do M because M is mathematics. Okay, so that has. Okay, let's do capital S. Okay, S. There's an uppercase S, lowercase s, and everything. Okay, so find all subjects that have a S in it. Okay, now find all subjects that have a CE in it. Okay, it can be uppercase or lowercase. Now declare a dictionary. Subject scores. Okay? So assign some random scores. For mathematics, you got 90. Science, you got 75. Assign some random scores. Okay? Find all subjects where subject score is less than, let's say, 60. Okay? Declare a function that takes takes the above 5, number 5. That's the logic. The same logic that you defined outside the function, now you're going to put it inside the function. You're going to pass different dictionaries. Okay? Now switch this first to one. Declare a list of students with the dictionary of scores and repeat the same logic. So the final one is declare a list of students, and each student is going to have a dictionary of score. And what I want you to find is all subjects or all students whose score is less than 60. Okay. So for each student, yeah, some of them might score less than 60. Some of them might be mathematics less than 60, science less than 60. So print those things. Okay. So that is what I want you to do. Okay. So I pasted that question in the chat. Okay. You can do it, send it to me. You can send a picture or output in WhatsApp. That's fine. Okay. But practice it. If you practice, the more you practice, the better it is. Okay. All right, guys. So I'm going to stop here. And next Saturday, same time, I'm going to continue. But yeah, I will tell you a few more softwares that you have to install for next session. So what we discussed so far is very basics: data structures, dictionaries, lists, some few operations, and so on. Okay. So in the next class, we're going to look at like object-oriented programming, how to declare classes and all that. And then we'll also see how to connect to a database. Maybe we'll have some database and we'll connect to it. We'll pull some data, generate some reports and those kind of stuff. Okay. Yeah. Okay, guys, I'm going to stop here. And if you guys have any questions, you can ask me now. Yeah, if you don't have any question, that's fine. We can end the session here. Okay. Take care, guys. Enjoy your weekend.
Thank you.
Take care, guys. Bye.
Thank you.
Yeah, sure.